The hidden reason. You no longer fit in anywhere. There comes a season in life when you begin to feel like you no longer fit anywhere. Not in the places you used to belong. Not with the people who used to feel familiar. Not in the conversations that once made you feel included. Not even inside the version of yourself that everyone around you still expects you to be. You look around, and everything seems normal. People are still laughing, still talking, still making plans, still repeating the same routines, still living inside the same world you used to understand. But something inside you feels far away. You are there, but not fully. You are listening, but not connected. You are present, but some deeper part of you feels like it has already left. And you wonder, why do I feel so out of place? Why do I feel disconnected from people I used to be close to? Why do I feel lonely even when I am surrounded? Why does nothing feel like home anymore? The hidden reason you no longer fit in anywhere is not because you are broken. It is because you are outgrowing the version of yourself that knew how to belong by abandoning your truth. You are outgrowing the rooms where you had to shrink, the conversations where you had to hide your depth, the relationships where you had to perform, the places where your soul was tolerated only when it stayed quiet. And once you begin to awaken to yourself, fitting in starts to feel like betrayal. Because fitting in often requires a silent trade. You trade honesty for acceptance, depth for comfort, truth for approval, peace for belonging. You laugh when nothing feels funny. You agree when your soul says no. You stay quiet when something inside you wants to speak. You soften your truth so people do not feel uncomfortable. You make yourself easier to love by becoming harder for yourself to recognize. And for a while, this feels normal, because everyone around you may be doing the same thing. Performing, adjusting, hiding, pretending, belonging through self-abandonment. But then something changes. You start hearing the emptiness behind certain conversations. You start feeling the heaviness in places you used to enjoy. You start noticing how much energy it takes to act like the old you. You start realizing that being accepted by people who do not know your real self is not true belonging. It is only performance that got rewarded. And once you see that, you cannot unsee it. You begin to feel strange in your old life. Not because the old life suddenly became terrible, but because your awareness became sharper. Your soul became louder. Your body became more honest. Your tolerance for falseness became smaller. The jokes that once made you laugh now feel shallow. The drama that once pulled you in now feels exhausting. The approval you once wanted now feels empty. The people you once chased now feel distant from your spirit. The places you once called home now feel like rooms built for someone you no longer are. And this can feel terrifying, because when you no longer fit in anywhere, the mind immediately thinks something is wrong. Maybe I'm too sensitive. Maybe I'm too difficult. Maybe I'm too deep. Maybe I changed too much. Maybe I should go back to how I was. Maybe I should stop noticing so much. Maybe I should become easier again. But what if not fitting in is not a sign that you are losing yourself? What if it is the first sign that you are finally finding yourself? Because the real you may not fit into spaces that were designed for your mask. The real you may not feel comfortable around people who only knew your survival patterns. The real you may not belong in conversations where truth is avoided. The real you may not feel safe in relationships where love depends on you being convenient. The real you may not be able to stay in a life that only worked when you were disconnected from your own soul. That is the painful truth. Sometimes you do not fit in anymore because the place was never built for who you are becoming. It was built for who you used to be. the one who overexplained, the one who overgave, the one who stayed quiet, the one who kept peace at her own expense, the one who laughed to avoid tension, the one who said yes to avoid disappointing people, the one who tolerated emotional emptiness because at least it felt familiar. But when that version of you begins to fade, the old world begins to feel unfamiliar. People may still expect the same access, the same reactions, the same availability, the same silence, the same emotional labor, the same old role. But something in you does not respond the same way anymore. You do not want to explain yourself endlessly. You do not want to entertain fake closeness. You do not want to prove your worth in rooms where your soul feels tired. You do not want to keep making yourself digestible for people who never cared to understand your depth. And that is when you begin to feel like an outsider, not because everyone rejected you, but because your soul started rejecting the lie. The lie that belonging is worth losing yourself. The lie that being liked is the same as being loved. The lie that having people around means you are not alone. The lie that if you are accepted by many, you must be truly seen. But awakening teaches you something different. You can be accepted and still be unknown. You can be included and still be unseen. You can be surrounded and still be lonely. You can fit in perfectly and still feel like you are disappearing inside yourself. And once you know that, ordinary belonging no longer satisfies you. You no longer want to be around people just to avoid silence. You no longer want to speak just to fill space. You no longer want to smile just to keep the atmosphere comfortable. You no longer want to stay in places where your energy feels heavy. You want something real, a real connection, a real conversation, a real sense of peace, a real place where your soul does not have to hide. And because that is rare, you may feel like you belong nowhere for a while. This is the lonely middle. The old world no longer fits. The new world has not fully arrived. The old people feel familiar, but not aligned. The new people have not found you yet. The old version of you is gone, but the new version is still forming. So you exist between identities, between lives, between rooms, between who you were and who you are becoming. And that in-between place can feel like exile. You may scroll through your contacts and not know who to talk to. You may sit with people and feel like no one can reach you. You may go to places you used to enjoy and feel strangely distant. You may try to return to old habits, but they no longer give you comfort. You may try to be the old version of yourself, but it feels like wearing clothes that no longer fit. And this can make you question everything. But maybe this season is not here to punish you. Maybe it is here to separate you from everything you used to confuse with home. Because not everything familiar is home. Sometimes familiar is only the place where your wounds learned how to survive. Sometimes familiar is only the people who knew how to trigger your old patterns. Sometimes familiar is only the life that accepted your mask, but never met your soul. Sometimes familiar is only the role you played for so long that you forgot it was not who you truly were. And when you begin to wake up, life starts pulling you out of those roles. Not always gently. Sometimes through discomfort. Sometimes through loneliness. Sometimes through boredom. Sometimes through the strange feeling that you cannot force yourself to care anymore. Sometimes through the quiet realization that you feel more like yourself alone than you do around certain people. That realization can be painful, but it is also honest, because if you feel more peaceful alone than you feel in a room full of familiar people, your soul is telling you something. If your body relaxes when you leave certain spaces, your body is telling you something. If your energy returns when you stop trying to fit into certain relationships, Your energy is telling you something. If silence feels safer than false connection, your spirit is telling you something. And the message may be simple. This is not where you are meant to disappear anymore. You may have belonged there once. You may have needed that place once. You may have loved those people once. You may have been shaped by that life once. But not everything that shaped you is meant to keep you. Not everything you once belonged to is meant to be your future. And not every place that feels familiar is aligned with the person you are becoming. This is where many people get stuck. They think that because something was once meaningful, it must remain forever. They think that because someone was once close, the connection must always feel alive. They think that because they once fit somewhere, they are obligated to keep fitting there. But growth does not ask for permission from your past. Growth does not stop because other people are more comfortable with the old you. Growth does not apologize for making certain rooms too small. And your soul will not keep pretending forever just to preserve an identity that is no longer true. So maybe you no longer fit in anywhere because you are being prepared for a different kind of belonging. A belonging that does not require performance. A belonging that does not punish your depth. A belonging that does not ask you to shrink your truth. A belonging that does not make peace feel impossible. But before real belonging arrives, false belonging often has to fall away. And that falling away can feel like emptiness. It can feel like no one understands you. It can feel like you are too different for the old life and not yet ready for the new one. It can feel like you are floating, disconnected, unanchored, unknown. But maybe you are not lost. Maybe you are being cleared of old roles, old attachments, old masks, old expectations, old versions of love that only felt safe when you were smaller. And in that clearing, you may finally begin to hear yourself. You may finally begin to ask what you actually want. What kind of people feel peaceful? What kind of conversations feel alive? What kind of life feels honest? What kind of love does not require you to perform? What kind of belonging feels like home to your soul? Because that is the hidden gift of not fitting in. It forces you to stop looking for home in places that keep asking you to leave yourself behind. It forces you to stop confusing acceptance with alignment. It forces you to stop chasing rooms where your real self has to stay invisible. It forces you to return to the only place where true belonging can begin. Yourself. Yourself. Because the moment you return to yourself, the need to fit in everywhere begins to fade. You stop asking every room to accept you. You stop asking every person to understand you. You stop asking every old connection to make space for who you are becoming. You stop forcing yourself into places that were only comfortable when you were pretending. And at first, this can feel lonely. Because when you stop fitting into false spaces, there may be a silence before true spaces appear. There may be a season where your phone is quieter, your circle is smaller, your conversations are fewer, your old routines feel empty, your old people feel distant, and your new life has not yet fully formed. But this silence is not proof that you are unwanted. It is proof that your soul is becoming more honest about where it belongs. It is proof that you are no longer willing to call every familiar place home. It is proof that you are no longer willing to call every familiar person aligned. It is proof that your energy is no longer accepting access without depth. And that is growth, because a person who fits everywhere often has to leave pieces of themselves behind. A little honesty here, a little depth there, a little truth hidden under a smile, a little pain swallowed to keep things comfortable, a little intuition ignored so the connection can survive, a little self-respect sacrificed. So belonging does not disappear, and over time, they may be accepted by many, but unknown to themselves. That is the cost of fitting in where your soul does not belong. You become easy for others to recognize and difficult for yourself to feel. You become pleasant to be around and painful to live inside. You become connected to everyone's expectations and disconnected from your own truth. So when you stop fitting in, maybe life is not rejecting you. Maybe your soul is refusing to keep paying that cost. Maybe the part of you that was tired of pretending is finally strong enough to say, no more. No more shrinking to be understood. No more laughing to hide discomfort. No more explaining your depth to people who only want the surface. No more staying in rooms where your spirit feels heavy. No more calling loneliness a reason to return to false belonging. Because not every place that welcomes you nourishes you. Not every person who knows you sees you. Not every conversation that includes you connects with you. Not every relationship that lasted a long time is meant to last forever. And when you begin to understand that, your loneliness becomes different. It still hurts sometimes, but it no longer controls you. You no longer run back to the wrong people just because the right people have not arrived yet. You no longer confuse silence with failure. You no longer see a smaller circle as proof that something is wrong with you. You begin to see it as space. Space for truth. Space for peace. Space for people who can meet you without needing you to perform. Space for a life that does not make you feel like a stranger to yourself. And slowly, you begin to realize that belonging is not about being accepted everywhere. Belonging is about not abandoning yourself anywhere. It is not about being liked by everyone. It is about being real with yourself, even when some people cannot handle it. It is not about having a place in every room. It is about no longer entering rooms where your soul has to disappear. That realization changes everything, because once you stop needing to fit in, you start noticing where you actually feel peace. You notice the people around whom your body relaxes, the conversations where your words do not need to be edited, the silence that does not feel awkward, the places where your energy feels lighter, the relationships where your truth does not feel dangerous. And you begin to understand that true belonging is not loud. It does not always look impressive. It does not always come with a large circle. It does not require constant attention. True belonging feels simple, safe, honest, peaceful. It feels like breathing. It feels like you can exist without performing. It feels like your depth is not too much. Your sensitivity is not a burden. Your boundaries are not a problem. Your silence is not misread as rejection. Your growth is not treated as betrayal. And when you find even one place like that, you understand why you could no longer fit into the old ones. The old places were not evil. They were limited. They could only hold the version of you that knew how to survive there. But you are becoming someone who needs more than survival. You need truth. You need peace. You need alignment. You need people who do not make you feel guilty for being honest. You need spaces where your soul does not have to wear a mask. And until those spaces arrive, you must learn to trust the season where you feel like you belong nowhere. Because sometimes belonging nowhere is the bridge to belonging somewhere real. Sometimes being alone for a while is the price of no longer betraying yourself. Sometimes losing your place in the old world is the beginning of finding your place in the truthful one. And one day, this lonely season will make sense. You will see why certain conversations had to become empty, why certain people had to feel distant, why certain rooms had to stop feeling like home, why your old identity had to become uncomfortable. why you could no longer force yourself to care about things that did not touch your soul. You will realize that life was not removing you from everything. It was removing everything false from you. The need to be liked, the fear of being misunderstood, the habit of performing, the addiction to approval, the belief that belonging was worth your self-abandonment. And when those things begin to fall away, you may feel exposed at first. But you are not empty. You are becoming real. You are becoming someone who no longer needs to be chosen by places that cannot hold her. Someone who no longer feels proud of being accepted while feeling unseen. Someone who no longer calls a crowd connection. Someone who no longer calls familiarity destiny. Someone who no longer calls self-abandonment love. That is why you no longer fit in anywhere. Because your soul is no longer willing to betray itself for a seat at the wrong table. Because your spirit is no longer interested in being understood by people who only understood your mask. Because the life that once made space for your survival self cannot always make space for your awakened self. And that is not a curse. That is transformation. So let yourself not fit for a while. Let the old rooms feel strange. Let the old people misunderstand the distance. Let the old conversations lose their taste. Let the old version of you become impossible to perform. Do not rush to become acceptable again. Do not run back to what feels familiar just because the new life feels quiet. Do not panic because your circle is smaller. Do not assume loneliness means you made the wrong choice. Sometimes loneliness is simply the space between pretending and belonging. And in that space, you are learning the most important truth. You were never meant to fit into every place. You were meant to find the places where your soul does not have to hide. You were never meant to be understood by everyone. You were meant to stop misunderstanding yourself. You were never meant to keep every connection alive. You were meant to stop keeping yourself dead inside relationships that had no truth. And when you finally accept that, you will stop grieving every place you no longer belong. You will stop chasing every person who no longer feels aligned. You will stop trying to explain why your energy changed. You will stop asking the old life to make room for the new you. You will simply move differently, more quietly, more honestly, more peacefully. And the people who are meant to find you will recognize that peace. They will not ask you to become smaller. They will not punish your depth. They will not need you to perform happiness. They will not make your truth feel heavy. They will not make you feel strange for being real. And when you meet them, you will understand something deeply. You were not too much. You were just in places that had too little room for your soul. You were not hard to love. You were just trying to be loved by people who only knew how to love your mask. You were not lost. You were being guided away from everything that could not hold the real you. And maybe that is the hidden reason you no longer fit in anywhere. You are not being rejected by life. You are being redirected toward truth. You are being pulled out of performance. You are being returned to yourself. And once you truly belong to yourself, the right places will no longer feel like places you have to fit into. They will feel like places where you can finally breathe.